Here, Chair of Open Space. We have a quorum, so let's call the meeting to order.
Okay, so pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, subsection 18, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, the meeting of the Open Space Committee, will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or a requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.hubbardstonma.us. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via Zoom. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website a comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. All right, Bob, it's all yours.
Okay, so you're going to give the screen to me?
Yes, I am.
Rick, Susan, you has to mute.
Susan is muted. Susan is muted.
No, she's not.
Okay, isn't that this?
See,
Stop your screen.
You just take over the session and apologize.
I showed you.
Yeah.
Stop your screen.
This thing that says mute.
the Rick and
Yeah.
Susan show.
There you go. All right, Bob, you're the host, so you guys have a good meeting.
Thank you.
Okey-doke.
Thank you.
All right, so let's see. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if I can get through this here. Let's start with the agenda. Can everybody see that?
Nope.
Nope. Let's see. Only host. Who can share? Only host. Let's try that again. Sharing my screen, participants chat. Nobody can see, can you see that now?
No,
I see your window.
You see my window?
Oh, that's
That's
your window. Okay.
that's Rick at the window.
Let's see. Want to share screen? Who can share screen? Only the host. She said she made me the host.
Your video isn't on at all, Bob. Maybe that's the issue.
Oh.
Okay.
Can you tap at the top of your screen and turn on your video?
Oh,
There
there's
we go.
the screen. Look at that.
Oh. Now I'm trying to get rid of what's on my screen. You are sharing your screen. Oh, okay. Let's try that.
We can see it.
Oh, that's all that matters. So you can get
Oh, there we go. I have the image of everybody else on here. Old business, and I know Rick sent around some minutes from long ago. Any comments on minutes?
Just one. The name in there of the state forest manager is Tim Culkeen with a T, not Jim.
Okay, got it.
Any other comments?
Looked good to me.
I've got a motion to approve.
I moved.
That was Todd.
That was.
Second? Someone?
Second by Mark.
Mark seconds. All in favor? No, we have to do it. So we're voting on this. So just state your name, Todd, or I'll call the names and then you can respond. Todd,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Susan? Steph? Bob is an aye, and Rick, I'm sure, is an aye. All right, motion approved, so the minutes are accepted. Anything from the treasurer's report, Miss Susan?
Okay, I just want to be sure I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I have to.
Okay, Rick's gonna mute. Are you,
And
oh,
if at any time somebody wants to take the screen, I can share it if anybody wants to take the screen.
okay. Why am I still doing that?
Rick's muted.
I'm muted.
I don't know why I'm still doing that. Well, like, we can't go on like this. Rider, 5,691.32 stays the same. Old open space, we call the expense account in the 219 report on page 25, they refer to it as the open space donations, but the amount is still the same, 477. The Hubbardston Preservation Fund is currently 6,651.87. We had one addition and one subtraction. On 9/30/19, there was an addition of 4,339.49 from Hay Money. And then we had an invoice from Burnshirt in the amount of 1,874.02, which of that 275 actually paid some money back to Mark for some materials. And that leaves us with a balance, current balance in the Hubbardston Preservation of 6,651.87, and hopefully good hay money to come in from a good season this year in the fall.
Sounds great.
That's it. Any questions?
No. Anybody questions? Is that, I don't think we need an approval of that. Do we need an approval vote on that?
No.
All right. Nice job, Susan, and it's nice to see that preservation account up in the $6,000-7,000 range and growing in the not too distant future, hopefully. Any update on Fieldstone property? I haven't heard anything over all these months.
I have a quick update on that. In the middle of May, Cynthia Henshaw had reached out to both Stephanie and myself. And Cynthia and I ended up having a short conversation. She was looking for the amount of support and hopefully the amount of $100,000, not this season, maybe the next, from the CPA. I was aware that we had this big expensive playground coming up, and I was guessing it would probably pass. But I said, even if it did, I think we could swing it. We also, of course, are starting the second year. We have 5 payments on the roof, the library roof, but we've already taken care of 2 of them in the meeting last night, FYI 20 and FY 2021. And then even with the 50,000 out for the playground cash out of CPA, we will still have a balance of around 169. And if we add into that the revenues estimated to be at around 80,000, that should leave us about almost 250,000. So it will be tight because we'll be paying off the roof, we'll be paying off the playground note for 150, which I'm going to get involved in that because I want to spread it out as long as we can, 5 to 7 years. And then hopefully we'd be in a position to help out with Fieldstone. So that's where we're at on that. Cynthia's still working on it. She's pretty confident that it will come through. She was just looking to see where we were at. Does everybody feel comfortable with that?
Well, that's a good summary. Any other questions, comments on that?
Oh, and thanks to Mark at the meeting. He clarified that, well, has a park, he brought up the question, has the park grant been worked on? And I actually, I'll be honest, I don't think there was a murky answer. That yes, we've talked about it, but I didn't sense it was actually in process now. So maybe I'll be a little nudge on that because that certainly would help. And not, I mean, I think we could swing it, all 3 things, but it would be nicer if we had a little more margin. And thank
Yeah,
you,
I'll-
Mark, for being brave. Just
Yeah.
asking about that. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
and
Bob.
relative to that, Bob will kick himself in the butt. I sent, and I think I forwarded to people on the committee, my comments to Ryan about when open space goes forward asking for money. We've gone forward after knowing that we would be accepted for a grant, and I don't, I know this method from talking to staff. I know that the PAC's effort meets the criteria and therefore needed to get approved by CPA. But I don't know why it could not have been deferred until after they had applied for the grant, like what we typically do, like what Open Spaces had to do. And
Yeah.
I sent that note to Ryan, and he didn't have an answer for that. And so it's water over the dam at this point. And I should have got up at town meeting and asked that question to Sanda. But, you know, why it had to be done this year and for open space to potentially share the entire burden doesn't sit well with me, but.
Well, you know, Bob, I agree with you. And when I first heard it, I almost fell off my chair at that very first meeting, and I did not vote on it because I felt I knew I didn't have the information to look at the whole picture and what else we were indebted to. However, saying no to somebody for a playground is not a winning proposition. And in my mind, and that's why I'm doing this history, it's request after request for, you know, ice rinks, for baseball fields, for basketball courts. We are done with that, and we will be next. So,
Yep.
you know, I hear what you're saying, but I don't think I think it would have created more heat than light. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yes, oh,
Well, at least-
absolutely.
at least the article was written up to pull it out of the undesignated reserve rather than the open space reserve.
Well, yeah. Or it said, or, no, that's right. That's right. Some of the other one was
Wait,
or history, and I was thinking, what? But
And
anyway.
we do have a commitment from Ryan to really work on the, and maybe an obligation on our own part to help Parks with that grant application, but at any rate, so that's enough on that.
Okay.
It just didn't set well with me that they got the money first and then are gonna apply for the grant second, but at any rate.
Yeah, I hear
Um,
you.
Projects list, let's leave that for just a little bit later, because there's quite a bit on that. Malone Road CR, and Mark can ad lib on this, but that's, has that been signed by Concom, Mark?
I asked Jassy a week, 10 days ago, and the answer was no at that point.
But
What
at
happened
any
with
rate,
that meeting that you guys zoomed on?
everything is a go on the CR, all the heartache and effort and is really done. They have approved it. They just need to, everybody has approved it. And I think select board has signed it.
Jassy said the select board had it all signed and notarized, but was still waiting on the Concom.
And so that's the only thing left in the Malone CR. So that's a lot of kudos to Mark for generating that document and then following through on it. It is quite a process. Under new business, anything, so that's it, what I get for old business. For new business, Steph and I have been part of several webinars, international land conservation, et cetera. And we've attended one of those. That was a invite that we got because of the Keystone program. Became aware of an organization called Alpine that's local, or at least in Massachusetts anyway, Academics for Land Protection in New England. There's a Lincoln Institute of Land Policy. So there was a lot of stuff going on. Those are pretty beefy, high-end organizations that could potentially help with webinars, with land acquisition. We attended a bee seminar that was extremely well done. Who did that stuff? But anyway, I don't know, Rick was in on that, and it was an extremely well done webinar. Anybody else got any contributions on webinars that they've been part of? If not, we'll move on. I put a bullet in there under new all access trail guidelines. Through Dick O'Brien, in a kind of a roundabout fashion, our organization, Open Space, had tried to find some guidelines relative to all access trails. And you would think that ADA would be the first place to go to, but that's essentially silent on that. There's an organization or another act similar to that, and I put that in the email that I sent around, that does have some guidelines on all access in it. It talks about trails, and if it's a hard surface trail, your discrepancy in trail surface has to be something like a ½ inch. If it's a woodland trail, it can be no more than 2 inches, etc. And it's got pitch guidelines. So I think I put that up on the drive, and if I have not, I will follow up with that. That bench stuff that I sent around, I have followed that up with my comments and thoughts on it. What prompted me is just whether or not an organization or a town would leave itself open to liability for something over and above the trail. And after doing a little bit of research per the email that I sent around, we're in good shape relative to trails, but when you add a building, any kind of a structure, that gets you into a very, very gray area where you can be liable. And I'm not fond of Bobby's solution on benches. I think they're fine for the moment, but per what I put around, the mixture of wood into the ground surrounded by concrete is a formula for ultimate failure. And the failure mechanism, particularly on that type of a bench, is it'll tip over. And if it tips over and somebody whacks their head as they're going over backwards, it's not a good thing. So I don't think we need to do anything at this point, but that was the reason I had put that out. And it probably could go onto our projects list to replace those. And Todd had sent around a couple samples, and I believe I followed that up with a whole bunch of similar samples where the failure mechanism is not where the bench will tip over. If anything, the bottom piece will rot a little bit and settle a little bit, but the whole thing's not going to tip over. But the reason I put it out was the reliability issue. The liability issue. I don't know if anybody's got any comments to go along with that, but that's why I did that.
Should we remove the bench that's there that Bobby put in?
I think we should in the not too distant future, and that's why I say maybe put it on the projects list. And did people get the picture of benches that of a whole series of benches? I think I sent that around.
I don't remember seeing.
You
I
don't
didn't
remember
see-
seeing it? I'll make a note to send that around. Basically, it's two log pieces on the ground and like half a log sitting across the top between the two.
That's what I had.
Yeah, and there's a whole, there's a number of slight variations off of that. And you can get fairly fancy with some of the solutions that do that. I'll make a comment here that I'll send the bench pictures around that I did. But yeah, it was directly related to what Todd had done. So the failure mechanism is not tip over. The worst that's going to happen is the bottom piece that's in contact with the ground is going to slowly rot. And so it gets a little bit lower and lower over time.
Yeah.
So I think I love the idea of benches. I think that's a great thing to have on the trails at some points. I just don't like this particular solution.
Bob, can I back up to accessibility for a moment?
Sure.
As far as I know, the most directly applicable guidelines are still the Forest Service ones, the FSTAG guidelines. We've talked about those in the past, and they're posted on the those. And they're posted on the Google Drive as well.
Yep, I've got those. I just looked that up while I took the
And that's just for general information.
Yep, and I'll put up what I've got. The core of that, Mark, and I looked up several things that I have subsequently found out the Forest Service. There's something called, just like there's an ADA, there's an AB, as in Bob, A.
Yeah, that's not going to be any more applicable than ADA is.
Oh, no, it is. It is. That is where Forest Service gets their guidelines. It's the upper level act by Congress from which Forest Service derives. So if you go to the ABA Act, and I'll put that up there. If you go to the ABA Act, Forest Service takes their words directly from the Act, as well as do a few other people. It's quite a document and quite a thing if you go online for doing that. So.
Okay.
Oh, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So there's a Architectural Barriers Act, Field Trail Standards, Forest Service, et cetera, Trails Accessibility, et cetera. But those, and you would think that there would be some high level thing that they would go to, and it is. They go back to that Architectural Barriers Act.
Okay.
Um,
All right. And moving forward back to Malone again.
okay.
I gathered that you weren't aware that Bobby had dispatched Dick O'Brien to inspect Dottie's Rock. Is that true?
I know. I had found out after the fact
Uh-huh.
that Dick O'Brien had walked out there. And I just saw something that Dick O'Brien said it was a beautiful place, but
Yeah. Well, the reason he went out there was that Bobby said, "Go check this out. Let's do some work out here."
Yeah, and I responded to Bobby, and I probably should have CC'd the entire committee. My response to him is, our committee has no plans for any extensive work for going out in any direction towards Dottie's Rock. I said, we have discussed extending our all access loop, if you would, and potentially hardening some additional surface, but we have no concrete plans even for that, and absolutely no thoughts of doing anything headed out towards Dottie Rock.
Yeah, I saw
So
that. email.
And when I sent that killed that effort. But
Yeah, I saw that email exchange, Bob.
You know, I have no objection to offers of free trail crew help. And Dick O'Brien knows better. I mean, somewhere in that thread, Dick said, you know, well, we have to consider the conservation restriction and things like that. But and I guess I'll underline that that if we ever do want to talk about major trail work out there, Jassy needs to be involved.
Yep,
For North County.
absolutely.
But at any rate, Bobby is certainly not a quick study. As
What was that, Mikey?
We've had that
Bobby's not what?
discussion. He's not a quick study.
Oh, no.
We've had that discussion with him before, that just because he's willing to do the work doesn't mean that he can charge out there and do it.
Yep, absolutely. And I interface with him a significant amount, and on many occasions, I'm not on the same page, and I've let him know that, so.
Okay.
Yeah, all right,
Oh, by the way,
any-
Todd, yeah, it was me doing the chainsaw work out there. I took care of some of the blowdowns and stuff that was about to be blowdowns.
Yep, and while you make that comment, there's a couple trees on Gates Hill Trail that we need to take care of. There are two good-sized birches, about 500-600 yards from the field area as you're going down the trail. They were leaning, but now they're up against, I think, a hemlock. That's the only thing that's holding them up now. So and so they're about to come down in the not too distant future. How about
We
Matt?
want to schedule a work day?
I think that's a
Sure,
good.
although I don't think what else needs to get done? What else needs to get done?
Well, we got a whole project list.
Yeah, let's when we go to the projects, let's take a look at that and see if there's a couple other things you want to do. From my perspective, that's just two birches that I think they were dead before, but now they're leaned over the trail. They were standing upright on their own, but they're not standing upright on their own at this point. So, and they're sort of a disaster waiting to happen. Well, let's when we go back to the projects list, we'll talk about that. But I'll make a note about a work day. Map and kiosk. Let's talk about that. Let's see, and if I got Mark's things up here? No, but I can put them up here really easily. Go over here. That's if I need to. Documents, downloads.
Before we get too far down this rabbit hole, I think I should point out that, you know, it's all kind of moot if we don't know where the trails are. So maybe we should talk first about the Mill Pond potential reroute.
Yep, absolutely.
And put formatting stuff off for another day.
All right. Well, maybe
I mean,
not.
we can dive into it if people want to, but Mill Pond, you know, after you mentioned that last year, I scouted the area, and I really didn't see much in the way of alternatives that would be a significant improvement over what's there. So I guess I'd like to see what you have in, you know, have a field day and see what you have in mind out there.
That, I would love to schedule a field day for that. Can everybody see this map?
Yes.
If I take my hand structure, what what we did, obviously it doesn't go far from that, but you start out and you go down a little bit, and then you can see some contour lines, but we went up along the ridge a little bit, and then right in about in here, there's the Great Divide, if you would. And you can see a little bit of water flow things. I'm not even sure what that white line is. Oh, I know what it is. It's an error in, maybe Mark can explain it. What's that white line, Mark?
Yeah, you're right. It's an error in MassGIS's culvert block there. It's basically old cross trail. but it's
Right,
not.
that's what I thought. But if you come down along here, there's a Great Divide in here where at one point water flows over this way and water flows down this way. And there's a significant ridge. It doesn't necessarily show it right in through here, but it drops off 25, 30 feet down into this area. So we just walked along this. Right in this point, there's a pretty cool oak tree that's, what you call it, a wolf tree? That looks like a wolf tree. It's got a lot of long branches coming out. But if you come down in through here, it avoids this rocky stretch. And if you go across the Great Divide in an appropriate way, you avoid all these, there are about 3 or 4 or 2 to 3 really muddy areas on the existing trail. And coming down along through here, you're able to avoid all those really muddy areas. And then there's one rocky stretch right in through here. I mean, that's not so bad. It's not pleasant to walk on, particularly for equestrians, but it's not bad. But if you stay along in here, you can avoid the really muddy stretches that are in here. So the simplest thing would be to walk it, as you said. We've walked it several times and started to do a little bit of flagging to make it easy to walk. So if we want to schedule a walk day on that, I'd love to do that. Any comments or suggestions or availability?
I can walk.
You can walk? All right.
So just a point of information, where is the boundary line between Templeton and Hubbardston? Is the mill pond all in Hubbardston, or is it extend into Templeton?
Oh, it's all in Hubbardston.
Okay.
If I come out here a little bit, I don't have to come out that far, Bob. So here's Mill Pond, and here's the town line over here, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Suggestions for, what's best for,
A morning? Any
Uh,
morning?
any morning is good for us. And, well, let me do, I'll just do a quick overview without trying to do it. If you come down along in here, you stay on high ground, avoid this one really rocky area that's a little nice. And then if you go over the Great Divide in a proper fashion, it goes uphill near along the lines of where that lean-to is some kids somebody put up 2 or 3 years ago. So it stays on the high ground versus, and you can't see it so much from these contour lines, but slight changes in elevation make it so you're either not walking or riding in muck, or you are going through the muck. And then you eventually work your way down to the stream crossing that feeds the pond area. And when you cross the pond area, from my perspective, there's a nice route that comes up just a little bit higher onto high ground. Like this area has got a few places that aren't particularly ideal either. And this is really nice territory up in here. And if we're gonna change something, you know, aesthetics and ease of walking, et cetera, are always features or benefits of a trail. But if in order to assess that by everybody's viewpoint, that's our viewpoint, but if everybody's viewpoint, it'd be great to just walk that. So any morning is good with us, and in weekend days are okay with us.
How about next Wednesday morning?
It's good with
What's
us. How about
What's
other
that date?
people? That date? Let me put that calendar back up here. That would be here. So we're talking about the 8th, right, Mark?
Yeah.
How about the
I've got a
8th?
doctor's appointment that day.
7th,
In the morning.
6th.
6th, 7th, 8th, 9th? Got another date, Mark?
You could do it, you can do an afternoon. I just can't.
7th.
How about the 7th?
I'm okay in the morning.
How about,
Morning's okay with me.
how about 10 in the morning?
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Okay.
That'll be great. I'll make sure we get out there and get that clarified, exactly the path, because we've been out there several times trying to figure out the best route. So 7th at 10. That would be great. Now, relative to the rest of things, I mean, relative to the types of material and the other things, we can certainly talk about that. Any other comments on the types of map? And because we can get that all clarified. We're open to any. I mean, the only, Steph and I like contour maps. We just thought it'd be a little easier when what I sent around, a little easier for the general public to relate to the other one, but if everybody else likes the contour type, that's great.
Yeah, I liked it. I think you can see the trails well enough to, the people that are interested in the contour can see that, and if they're not, they'll be able to follow the trails fine.
All right, so let's want to go. I don't think we need a vote on that, but so everybody likes and I think that's the one I first opened up here.
Yeah.
Yep, so that's this. So that was one deciding factor. Then the second one was whether or not we should put on the side trails. And Mark, you must have done some serious walking to get all those side trails on there. Jeez. That was great work. I love it. I'm keeping that map.
Yeah.
I
collected most of those last year.
But I don't think, per what, and you had the right comment, putting side trails on there is probably not a great idea to invite going off the main trails. So, and I think that was a consensus of everybody. So we got the contour. And then I think the only other thing was just the material we're going to put it on, and Rick sent around a nice note on that. Any comments on material? I can get up.
Yeah. Well, you can take printing on vinyl banner under plexiglass off the table. That's a hard pass for me.
Okay.
Because
It would look like crap. It would just piss me off every time I looked at it, and I'm not gonna.
That's what I like, Mark. Let's make it clear here.
What about Jassie's suggestion about metal?
That's fine. We can have the discussion of Sintra versus Dibond, which is what Signs.com is using for what they call aluminum. But either is fine. but the banner is a no-go.
I was,
Any,
ideally, we would have a kiosk at Malone and we'd have another one maybe at the entrance to like Muzzy Ridge. Are we thinking of doing that in the future at some point?
Yeah, definitely.
This seems like a lot of map for one location. That is, it'd be nice to split it into 3 different maps that are relevant to where people are at the time.
That's a reasonable thing to think about.
Yeah, if you did that, then what Todd had suggested, those little squares that, I don't know what they're called, but that you use with your phone and you click on it and then it expands. Because some people might want to start at Mount Jeff and go all the way over to Muzzy Ridge.
Yeah,
So
they
to
must.
see that from one map on their phone.
Mhm.
What was that called?
Is it QR scanning?
Yeah, QR scanning. I like the idea of that. I mean,
But that could also, I believe that refers, the QR scan will take your phone and refer it to
Yeah.
a file on a website, right?
yeah,
You're right.
So we could put smaller or subsets of that big map on the website.
and
What-
let's see.
What's the reception like up there on Mount Jeff? I've never really looked. I mean, if you can't get to the web, then,
Well, you can get to it from Malone, I know.
okay.
Not
Well, you must be able to get
Butterfell,
from
but
Jeff.
you can do it a little bit. It's sort of standard Hubbardston weak signal. I've never tried it at Mount Jeff.
Well, I'm guessing it's higher than even Malone, so I'm guessing you can get it there if you get it at Malone. I've just never looked.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had thought about actually dropping a QR code and a short URL on there, and we can certainly think about doing that. The one thing I would caution is that broken links suck,
yeah.
and if this map is going to be there for 5 years, can we pick a location that we are sure is going to be there 5 years from now?
Yeah. I mean, is that common when you go hiking to click on those little squares?
It's not unheard of.
Well, another way to solve that would be to not incorporate it into the big map, but to have a separate, something in Visine plastic up on the bulletin board there that
Yeah,
if the link changed, we can change that easily.
right.
Good idea.
That's a good idea, Rick. All right, so that's a good note on the QR code to make that a separate thing. Then Susan had some good comments relative to that. Here's your comments, Susan. You want to talk to that?
No, because if you can skim, I mean, I just need to know what color to paint the benches. I think I'm gonna go with Charlie Clark blue because I think, he really liked that. So that's probably what you're gonna see. As far as the kids thing, or just more historic information on the, is there enough room for that sort of thing? Or is that a separate?
Well, I don't know. You had things on there, trail length, and Mark
Oh,
did have
Rick mentioned that. Yeah, for sure. Like easy, intermediate, and advanced, kind of like ski symbols. I don't know how universal they are in hiking, but it's just common sense. But the Dottie Rock is the perfect kid loop because you have a goal. When you get out there, this is what you're going to see. It gives it a purpose, sort of. I don't know. So anyway.
Well,
I'm gonna-
what I would say about most of that is Well, I guess it kind of depends on, well, first of all, it's a fair amount of real estate, signed real estate to deal with. So if we want to put in more narrative information, we've probably got the room to do it. You know, in the current map format, the northwest corner is pretty available to have another block of text. We can expand the block of text that's on there. We can move the legend and the scale and the north arrow out of the text box. So we, you know, if we want to say a bunch, we've probably got the room to do it. And what you could do is, you know, this is the base that we're working. You know, this marked trails only topo background. That's the base that we're working from to do further edits. And you can just mock up something on paper. What do you want to say? Where do you think it could go on the map? And then we can take a look and see how it works.
How about that's something that could be his little thoughts, just spontaneous things. The along the lines of what Rick said, could we not do that with a supplemental piece of paper inside the? I assume we're going to have some sort of a protective cover so somebody doesn't do this. We'll have a I think we'll have a plexiglass cover, right?
I don't know
No?
about that.
Not if
No?
we're gonna do metal or Sintra.
No?
Yeah. The thing with plexiglass, Bob, is that when you try and put it up, you know, it's fine if you've got sort of a cabinet built there as a window, but when you put it up flush against something behind it, it invariably gets water behind it.
Yeah.
You can do as much caulking as you want.
Oh, no,
Always.
no, you're right. No,
Yeah.
moisture's going to get behind it. The air's going to get behind it. So it's going to lend itself to condensation at some point, and then that'll just build up over time.
Well, Rick and I discussed this a little bit, and we really haven't had vandalism problems, but this would be the time that it would happen, of course. Is that what we're talking about if it's metal? Well, we fix it then. We do it again. I don't know.
I just hate to spend, you know, $300 on a Sintra thing and then have somebody come and deface it or scratch it or whatever, and, you know, have to start over again.
Well, it's not an astronomical amount of money. We wouldn't want to replace these very often, but the if those other things don't lend themselves to plexiglass, then I would say, and it's the best approach, then put them up and we'll deal with it. But that gets back to a little different point from where we were at. Relative to Susan's comments, I think some of those things are nice, but we could potentially capture those on an independent piece of paper.
Or even just one of those little QR things.
Yeah.
I click on this one for an easy.
Or
hide.
eventually, maybe the historic commission or society could put some proper plaques, like at those cellar holes and maybe even Mill Pond. And then it speaks for itself when you get there, I guess.
Yep.
It doesn't need to be on the map. Well, let's think about it.
All right.
Mhm.
So I think,
Let me-
do we want to decide on the material tonight or just put that off for the time being?
Well, I guess that.
I like the idea.
I am.
I didn't hear that.
I would go for metal personally.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd go for the aluminum. I mean, from a cost standpoint, It's $148 versus 200 and something for Sintra. And it's got the greatest longevity. The ink will fade before the sign falls down. So
Yeah.
What did you have for a life on that? I was really surprised that it was that low.
for what? Aluminum?
Yeah.
10 plus years.
Oh, 10 plus,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, the ink's only going to last depending on, you can clear coat it and there's other things you can put over the ink to extend the life. But I mean, if you look at the sign that's up at Mount Jeff now, it's lasted quite a long time. But you know, the picture is starting to fade, and that's what's going to happen to any substrate you use.
Mark, you
Yeah.
like metal?
The aluminum sign is actually a bonded composite. It's thin sheets of aluminum with a polyethylene core, all sandwiched together.
Huh.
Well, you can get straight aluminum too, just like a
Not-
road sign.
Not in this size.
Yeah, you can. I priced it today.
No, you didn't.
All right, let's have an argument now.
Signs.com, I plugged it in.
It's not, signs.com doesn't use straight aluminum, Rick. If you follow the link further, they describe what it is that they use. And
Okay.
it's a polyethylene core and aluminum on the outside.
So we're using plastic anyway.
That greatly complicates the recycling issue.
Yeah,
I'm
what's
a-
Jason think of that?
I'm all for recycling. I'm a recycling nut, if you want to put it that way. But for something, a relatively small piece of stuff that you have to recycle every 10 years, I'm not too concerned about that.
But Todd, let me return to your comment on, what's the scale of the area that we want to display here? Because we kind of glossed over that. The vision that I have for signage in these areas is that we've got kiosk signs at Mount Jeff, at Malone, probably at Old Cross.
Yeah.
And over at Red Oak. But then we also have smaller, like 1 foot trailhead signs at major intersections that also show exactly where you are, but a much more, local area. Here you are in the immediate area.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of thinking of Mount Jeff as a master, the kiosk sign, as sort of a master
Yeah.
sign, so showing the whole shooting match.
Yeah, I like the idea of a big overview at some central place like that. I guess that's where most people get started, right?
Absolutely.
At least that's where I see most of the cars.
But especially, I could see the Malone Road kiosk being much more focused
Yeah.
directly on the Malone area, because that gives us the ability to show more detail, like the accessible loop and whatever else.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Right now, the Malone area is quite a small little blip on this figure map.
But the trails to the north, like from Muzzy Ridge on up, I'm not sure how many people would do that whole. So it seems like it'd be nice to have that subset in a separate sign somewhere. I didn't even realize there was a parking area up to the north there.
Yep.
It's actually in Templeton.
Yeah, that's a big
That's
part.
actually a big parking area.
Yeah, that's trailer capable.
Well, although per Todd's thing, that is new in the last couple of years, but that's a big parking area now.
Yeah, I don't know how many times when I've been at Mount Jeff Trailhead and people are there, they're looking at the map, or I'm handing them a trail map or something like that. Even people in town here that didn't realize, oh, Muzzy Ridge. And even some didn't even realize that Malone Road was so close. So
Yeah.
it would be nice to be able to highlight those areas as other places that you could drive to and park. And
Yeah, it is good to have the big overview, but it'd also be nice to have subsets of that.
Yeah.
Whether
So
we
what's
can
all-
take that on now, I don't know. But
What's all that mean?
what does it mean?
Translate all that. How
Well,
would you change this map?
Well, I wanted to see if we were on the same page or not to have the Mount Jeff kiosk location being a master map like it is now,
Yeah,
Okay.
showing everything.
but maybe in the future we could develop other kiosks at other sites.
Absolutely. And that's what I've had. That was actually going to be my grant application this year
Uh-huh.
that I never got around to doing for the recreational trails grant.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, but even at these other areas, you would want to somehow not just, I've blown up this particular spot, but you'd want to probably let people know about these areas as well, wouldn't you?
Ideally, you'd be able to show the big overview and maybe a larger version of the immediate area.
I'm confused a little bit. If at Mount Jeff, this is what we put up, what are you going to gain by putting something small at a different location? Why wouldn't you put the same thing up?
Well, you could, but if you created a smaller map, I mean, a map of a smaller area, you could show more detail for the area that people are likely to be going to at that location, right?
I guess.
Maybe it's not that important.
What do you think about all that, Mark?
I'll send around some examples of smaller trailhead or trail intersection You Are Here maps that I put up at Leominster State Forest. And that'll give you some ideas of, when we can, if we get a grant and can do extensive signage, the way that can help you when you're out on the trail.
I can see Todd's viewpoint about relative to, for example, this stuff and seeing some of the more detail here, but then maybe you put something that says, okay, there's also something you can start at Mount Jeff. You can start off at near cross of Muzzy Ridge, or you can start off of New Templeton Road.
Yeah, I mean, we're really getting ahead of ourselves on what all these kiosks would look like at other locations. I mean, we're not going to do it all at once.
All right, so let's stop here. It does provide food for thought, so that we don't have to decide that. So we've decided on something that will provide a overall map at Mount Jeff, and metal is the likely solution. So, any more discussion on that?
well, yeah, I just got a comment on just in general on kiosks. My plan this spring, if it stops raining for long enough,
Did you say this spring?
I mean, now this summer, right? Is to at least repaint the existing kiosk at Mount Jeff, the posts and possibly the background. I haven't looked at that part that closely, but just to spiff it up a little bit. So does anybody have any objections to me doing that?
Not I.
Yeah.
Have at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and so the posts are currently white, and the inside roof and the background for the bulletin board are all kind of a puke brown. So anybody have any thoughts on what they'd like to see those painted, what colors? Should we leave the posts white? And it doesn't matter to me. I've actually got some leftover paint downstairs. I haven't looked closely at to see. I may have some paint that wouldn't cost us anything. But I know I have white, so.
What's wrong with all white?
Nothing to me.
Anybody else? Nope. Todd, I can see Todd. Mark says shaking his head. Whatever you think, Rick.
Okay.
On the matter of painting, if you're gonna repaint that bench at Malone, what kind of condition is it in? Does it need any repairs?
I'll be looking at that too. Susan's going to do the painting, but that was one of her that was one of her
Oh,
concerns.
Susan.
That was one of her concerns, so I'm going to be checking that out to see what kind of shape they're in. I think, I've sat on them, but I didn't really pay that much attention to whether it was going to fall out from under me, but it didn't. So
Susan said that's a good test.
that's all I can say at this point.
All right.
But unless the wood is rotted up there, and that could be too, I suppose. But if the wood isn't rotted, I can repair whatever needs to. If something's loose, I can strengthen things and that kind of thing.
All right. So that takes care of the kiosk, benches, the let's take a couple minutes. Let's see, projects list. I'm going to bypass for the moment the projects list, of which this was one of the things. I can fix that live. The bridge at Malone is, at the Canesto is a disaster waiting to happen at this point. It wasn't too bad, 6 months ago or so. In fact, Steph and I personally had a very scary situation happen about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We were taking a few riders down, and we knew the bridge wasn't good, so we crossed through the water. But we had a couple kids with us, and the one of the ponies that somebody was riding says, "I'm not going that way. I'm going home." And the kid wasn't a good enough rider to say otherwise. And the pony went right straight across the bridge. And at this point, there's a good sized hole in the bridge where a leg could go right down through the hole. So it's at a point where we either got to block it off or fix it. And I think this is on the projects list. Here's what I did in preparation for this discussion. The deck has got some significant holes in it, and not previously the rotted boards, the rotted decking was at the edge, and if you went through, you would only go through a few inches because there was ground below it. At this point, it's air below it. The supports are in good shape. I had meant to get down there today to just double check that, but those are like telephone poles and those are in good shape. The railing, most of the railing is in good shape. There's one post that's been bad for years. So that's a summary of what the overall bridge structure is like. Relative to decking, here's my thoughts on decking. We could do 2 layers of rip off the old decking. If you use a PT solution, a pressure treated solution, you can rip off the old decking and replace with pressure treated. What's on there now is about 3 inches of rough cut something. I don't know if it's oak or whatever it is, but it's 3 inches of rough cut something. It's certainly not pressure treated. If we do 2 layers of pressure treated to get up to about a 3-inch thick deck to span some of the gaps in there, that'll turn out to be about $560. The cost of the hardware for screws, whether they're GRK, RSSs, or timber locks or whatever, will be somewhere in the $200 range. Then you probably want to put on an anti-skid surface, which would add a little bit to it. So that'll come up to approximately $810. It'd be a fair amount of work to rip off the old decking and put the new stuff down. The life of pressure treated, that may be on the high side, so it's maybe between 20 and 40 years. So if you use a geosynthetic type solution, there's a couple options here. There are things called GeoTerra panels that you can put down on top of what is there. You wouldn't rip off what's there. The cost of those things is about $850 a square foot. You'd put a pea stone infill that would be a small amount of money. So that'd end up to be about close to $1,000. And the comment on that is you'd leave the old deck, you'd put these panels down on top of it. The life would be indefinite. And then something else that I've recently, in the last 4 or 5 months, come across is fiberglass reinforced plates, grates. Those are a little bit more expensive. They've got an anti-skid surface, and so that's what that would cost. And these grates have essentially an indefinite life. They're impervious to ultraviolet light, etc. This would probably be the simplest because it would take maybe 4 or 5 panels. I can send around graphics of these things. Relative to the handrails, one side was fine. The other side has got a post on the side closest to Route Road that post has been gone for a long time. So at least one post needs to get replaced. The upper structure on those is okay. It's up in the air, so those haven't rotted or anything. So I don't know. At that point, anybody got thoughts on an approach? Those are the solutions that I have. I guess if I had to pick, even though it's a little bit more money, I'd pick the fiberglass reinforced grates. These panels that I'm talking about here, those are roughly 18 inches by 3 feet. And so they'd span, and they would certainly be rugged enough. You can put excavators over these things. The grates would span the entire length, and so you'd probably need 5 pieces. They come in various dimensions. The length is fairly long, so the length would span the entire width of the bridge, and then you can get them in a 3-foot width or a 4-foot width. So I guess you'd need 4 grates to cover it. But they need minimal fastening, so you don't see any fastener cost in here. Any initial thoughts on what to do with that bridge?
So I just have a question. Is that actually part of technically on the Mount Jeff area, or is
No.
it strictly DCR?
That's state
Yeah,
forest.
if I go to this, I know that was coming up, the, um, so this darker green, if you would, Mark, that's state forest land, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about is right about where the hand is right now, right at the Mill Pond area. So that's right in the middle of the state forest land area.
Yeah. I mean, Rick, you were aiming at what I was about to say.
Yeah,
And,
so who pays for it?
well, there's that, but there's also the approval step.
Yes.
Because both Tim Culkeen as the state forest supervisor, and he would call in Joelle from forestry, will have an interest in this to make sure that any solution that's put in place is going to accommodate whatever equipment they want to run over that.
Right.
I can answer that. Well, okay, you're right about relative to that, and we'd want to call them in. I can state that either of these solutions, whether it's the fiberglass reinforced plates or those GeoTerra panels, could tolerate what we have put over that. I've driven a 10,000-pound tractor over what's there, and either of these solutions would tolerate that. But that's not really the point. The real point is we got to get them in to, I guess, agree with the solution.
So if somebody were to get, right now, if somebody were to get injured on those, Hubbardston Safe Forest, because it's a forest area, wouldn't really have any liability issues?
I don't agree with that. From the little bit that I have seen, the liability issue as a minimum gets extremely gray, if not gone, relative to structures. If somebody gets hurt on a trail and they're out walking on a trail and they slip on a rock or step into a mud hole or whatever it is, if they get hurt on a trail that's essentially in a somewhat natural and predominantly, not somewhat, in a predominantly natural environment, the lack of culpability is gone. I mean, is in existence rather. But relative to structures, that's a different story. If you're using a natural trail that nature put there, and predominantly that nature put there, then the liability is in place. The lack of liability, or the immunity of liability, is in place. If humans add structures like bridges, benches, buildings, whatever, then that liability, freedom from liability, from what I could tell, is gone. I know Mark may know more about that than I do, but I did a little bit of research. That's what the best that I could find out.
Yeah, I thought your analysis looked pretty close, Bob, as far as I know.
But whose liability? It'd be the state's liability, wouldn't it?
Right.
Well, I don't think the state put that in. They got back to some history there.
Well, they either put it in or they bought it, but either way, it's their responsibility now.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Certainly cause for them to want to approve it, for sure.
Yeah. When I walked the area with Tim last year, I did point out this bridge as being in poor condition. So he's had the heads up that there is an issue there. If we go back to him now and say it's deteriorated further and it's really dangerous, if we're not able to come up with any plan to repair it in a timely manner, I would expect that their response will be to block it off.
Yeah,
Well, it certainly should be blocked off until it can be fixed.
Yes, as a minimum, we need to do that. What's acceptable blocking, Mark? Is flagging tape okay, or do you need to put up some boards or something?
Oh, I think they would probably do something more, more comprehensive.
2x4 at least.
Okay, what do we do with this? I mean, for humans, they can bypass it, and I don't think there's anything that's a human can't walk around that's safe. So it's really equestrians, and I guess humans. I guess a kid could get hurt there, but wasn't paying attention or something. But it's really equestrians that are the main concern.
Hmm.
Because just like in our case, this horse was headed home, and it didn't care if there was a hole in that bridge. It said, "I'm going to cross that bridge,"
Mhm.
and it did. But fortunately, it didn't step in that hole. So
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, we need to schedule a meeting with Tim sooner than later, and figure out what hoops we're going to have to jump through to do something about this.
okay, how do we schedule a meeting with Tim?
Give him a call at Dunn State Park. I've got it. Well, I've got his email. Can certainly look up the number.
Okay, you want me to do that, Mark, or who's going to do it?
I can play it either way. Doesn't matter to me.
All right, well,
Knows him pretty well.
all right, Mark. If you know him, then schedule a meeting, and I can make myself available to attend any meeting that he wants and take him down there or something. But
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
All right, let's, I guess the first step in the solution, we don't have to decide which solution. People can think that all, about that. And then, and part of it may come from, the decision may come from potential funding. Is it at all likely that they have funding to address this?
I would say it's unlikely that they've got funding, but they might be able to dredge
All right,
up
well,
some materials.
That'll get clarified at that meeting anyway, regardless. So that's a net. And then depending upon the results of the meeting with Tim, what do you see as the discussion? Just that, yeah, it needs to get fixed, and we either shut it down or you guys, Hubbardston fix it. Hubbardston Open Space fix it. Is that a likely thing?
Yeah, I mean, that could be one outcome. You know, either we block it off, or you know, he might, depending on the type of solution that we're going to be looking at, you know, he might be able to dredge up some materials, or labor, or equipment potentially.
Okay.
But as far as having money available to buy any of this stuff, probably not.
Okay. So first up anyway, by far, that's just a meeting with Tim.
Yeah.
So we'll address that, and it'll probably take a month's time frame so that we'll have an update. And as a minimum, we could go down and put something up to block that off, because it is dangerous at this point. So, all right. So that's the scoop on the bridge. Let's see. We're at 8:23. And I think I've covered Kios, all access trails, Malone Roads, project list, how to attack. Let's go over to the projects list, because, let's see, let me go back to the agenda, I guess. Any other new business? And because the only other topic we have is to go back and talk about any projects that we want to address on the projects list. Any other new business?
No new business. I have a quick question for you, Bob. Just curious whether the cross-state riding group that was there this week, did they let us know in advance they were going to be there? I mean, I know they let Ray know, but
Actually, they went through a pretty formal process. There is an application form that they did use in conjunction with the Conservation Commission,
okay.
which actually I didn't know about that, but I went over to the Conservation Commission site, and one of their documents is to apply for the use of properties, and I believe that got filed. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I believe that got filed. And that was not cross-state, by the way. It was.
What was it?
It was a group of cross-state members. The cross-state canceled their ride.
Oh, they did. Okay.
Yeah, and then so that was some people in the local area that were cross-state members that still wanted to do something. So I think there were, 5 groups of people. Some of them were couples, etc. So there were about 7 trailers there. Some people had enough money, so they had 2 trailers of their own. So they were, I think there were 5 sets of riders.
Yeah, I was just curious if they had informed us that they were going to be there or whatever.
I had been talking to the cross-state people, and I said you could work through us, and then they said, well, we're going to file the formal documentation through Conservation Commission.
So Concom actually responded to somebody?
I don't know that 100%. If cross-state were to have done it without the COVID cancellation, the answer is yes. Concom could have approved it without even telling us.
Well, I didn't expect them to tell us, and that was just a joke, Bob. Given how long it takes them to respond to things.
All right.
Anyway, okay, sorry.
Now, now we're at 8:30. We always get to this point at a point when everybody's tired and ready to go. Do people want to go down through this a little bit and talk about some of the topics here?
Well, so if we're going to be doing any work other than things we've already talked about tonight, our next meeting isn't until the end of July. So if we put it off talking about some of it till the end of July, we'll be running out of time. I'm just wondering if some of these things we can knock off real quick, or at least set some priorities. I don't know the best way to do that.
All right. Everybody want to spend another 15 minutes or so going down through this?
Sure.
All right. Land management plan for Geordie Lane. Any thoughts on that, Mark?
I just put that on. I mean, it's done, but I just put the presentation to the Concom on hold while we were in Zoom land. Just as an aside, they've got 2 members whose terms are up at the end of June, and
Who does? Concom?
What's that?
Concom does?
Yes. Kayla and Rich Clapham both their terms expire. I put in a note to Mallory asking whether they were going to request to be reappointed or not, and haven't gotten an answer yet. But if there's an opening on the Concom, I am going to put my name forward to join them, because it would be very nice to have a little better integration between these two committees.
Absolutely. Anybody else? When you find out the answer to that, whether how they're going to look for appointments or whatnot, send it around to the committee, because we definitely need to get, I don't know, cross-pollination going here. So
So anyway, I'm probably, well, I don't know if it looks like we're in Zoom land for the rest of the year or something. Maybe I will present it to them that way. If it looks like real-time meetings are going to come back at some point, then I'll probably hold it.
okay, so as a minimum, and Rick can take this as a note, put the target date off to late fall.
Okay,
The All Access Trail and development timeline. Yeah, I'll just say a couple words and see if people, so I don't waste my time on this. Here's my thoughts on extending that All Access Trail. And if I use some of the guidelines from that, the references, whether it be the Forest Service or that act that I commented on, we don't need to get into 100% compliance, but those would be guidance documents for what we want to do there. My next thoughts would be to solidify some of the wet areas in the grassy areas. The sections that we have done is, from my perspective, those are in great shape. The next worst areas would be places on the grassy areas that get wet and mucky. It'd be nice to firm up the entire loop at some point. If people got thoughts on, those are my thoughts, to firm up the entire loop from both a solid surface and a discrepancy in elevation viewpoint. Some of the sections on the wooded area have got a fair number of roots and stuff that could be made more amenable. So anybody else got thoughts?
You guys haven't heard back on the Mass Trails grant yet, have you?
No, that should be coming up. We're at the announcement was supposed to be in June. And obviously we're at 6:30, so that's the end of June. I have not heard from anybody on the Mass Trails grant relative to that, and that would fix up a reasonable section of that. So,
well, could providing better service on those grassy areas you were talking about as a minimum, I can see that trying to get the elevation changed in some of those areas might be quite a bit of work that would need equipment, et cetera, that, would take longer.
I don't foresee any of that, Rick. I don't, relative to elevation, I doubt that we're discrepant from what I have seen in those documents. Those are pretty level trails.
Oh, okay.
The things that I would see are just firming them up. The trails, those documents do define a firm trail surface. And off the top of my head, I can't figure out how I don't remember how they, sort of categorize that, they are pretty specific on discrepancies in elevation. Like if it were concrete or asphalt or something, you can't have a delta in elevation of more than a half inch.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood what you were saying then. I
Yeah,
thought
no,
that,
relative to elevation, it's actually a discontinuity in the trail surface.
okay,
Have
got it.
a discontinuity versus elevation would have been a much better word. You can't have a discontinuity in the trail surface if it's a hard surface like asphalt or concrete of more than a half inch. With a woodland trail surface, I think it's 2 inches or something,
Okay.
what your discrepancy can be. And so some of those areas where we've got roots going across the trail would want to be smoothed up. But it does want to have a firm surface. So I don't know, the connection between, like, for example, going across from where we would probably have a kiosk area over to the field area, that's always mucky. If you go the other direction, there's probably 2 or 3 spots as a minimum that are mucky. So those would warrant a firming thing like some of those grass pavers or triax and stone, something like that, to put down on top of them.
So if we were to take that as a minimum, you know, how much work are we talking, number one? And secondly, maybe should be first is, would we have the money to do it at this point?
How about if I put together a proposal? I'll give you my thoughts, and then it'll help me direct my proposal. I wasn't, there's some things called grass protector, terratane, etc., that would make a grassy surface firm. They're not much more work, but you'd probably shut down the trail for 2-3 months to let all the grass get embedded in it prior to reusing it. The other approach would be just to use triax, the material that we used before, and put a small amount of 1.5 inch stone and another stone, so the surface would be the same kind of surface that we put through the wooded area. My initial inclination was to use one of the grass things. My economical and practical side of me says, what's wrong with a surface like we had? It identifies the trail. It is much more economical, and you can use it 5 minutes after you put it down. So,
Well,
any comments?
I personally like that. I can't see shutting down the trail for 2 or 3 months to let grass grow when we're in the middle of a pandemic and people are actually using it.
Any other comments? All right, I'll write up a little. I'll write up a little plan for what I think. Take that whole section, and I can dollarize it per section that we go through. So I'll take that as an action. If we go down through this list,
You skipped over that stone culvert on Canesto there, number
Oh, yeah.
15.
yeah, because I was sort of looking at the highlighted stuff. Yeah, and this is not the Excel file, so I can't put comments in here. Stone culvert on Canesto. Yeah, that's not in great shape. That really should just be taken out and a piece of double-walled culvert put in there. I guess I'll look to Mark to see what we can do about that.
Yeah, well, if you've got specific thoughts about what could be done, we can just roll it together into that meeting with Tim.
Okay.
That's a good idea, Mark.
I don't know, have you been down there lately, Mark?
No.
Oh, I don't know. About 2 years ago, I think there were a couple nasty holes in it where a foot could go right straight down through it and get trapped. And if it were an equine foot, the horse would snap its leg. and more of another place has started to develop on that. So it's probably time to really address that and repair that culvert properly. What we did before, Steph and I put a bunch of rocks, good-sized rocks, over the hole in the culvert, and that seemed to work for. It did work for a couple of years. But now there's another place in that. So stone culvert. We'll put topic for Tim. Discussion. So you can take that, Rick, and put that down for that. All right, let's just walk through it quickly. Some of these will be real quick. The Jassie's Meadow, that's a topic for another point in time. Vegetation area, that's probably topic for another time. Trail map, we talked about that already. Stone culvert. Raptors Education and Solutions. I don't know if that even wants to be on here anymore, does it?
Probably not. I'd still like to do it sometime, but there's no rush, and it's certainly not going to happen when we can't have a group. So.
Yeah, well, I followed that closely too, and I sent around something to everybody about what what's his name, Gary sent around. I think he had a little mixed wording on that, but which I did get a response from him on, that he concurred on that. Trail enhancement plan. The best way to handle that from my perspective was a couple people maybe working with Mark to put together something on that. Do we want to do that now?
Well, I already volunteered at one point, but I think, Mark, we've passed the application deadline, right? So.
Well, the Mass Trails grant is due. It would be for next year, and it would be due in January.
Yeah, so we can put that off then until later this year, right?
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't put it off too long. We could put it off till early fall, if you want to do that. And I wouldn't mind being on that subcommittee too. So if you want to put down a team, Rick, of Mark, yourself, and myself, anybody else that wants to be on it could. It takes a little bit of time to do the grant correctly. So Steph and I did one in conjunction with North Quabbin to do the stuff that we were talking about. That got started very late, and we submitted it with a full 10 minutes to spare. I mean, it has to be in by midnight of a specific point, and we finally got it accepted at 11:50 that night. So yeah, if you want to put that off, you want to put a date to get going on that, and you can put myself and yourself and anybody else that wants to be on, and Mark on that, put together what do we want to do for plans on that. The trail brush along the sides of Gates Hill Road. Just defer that later.
Yeah, the Habitat grants come out, and they advertise whether they're available in mid-July, and then the due date would be like beginning of September. So and I'm going to be really surprised if they release any funds this year. I started to talk with a invasive vegetation control firm about approaches and sort of getting grant assistance from them and preparing a grant. But basically, we've lost the window here with the with all their COVID stuff. I don't, that's not going to happen this year.
All right, so put that off for a year, Rick.
Okay.
And when you were talking about relative to the grant, are you talking about getting control of invasive species or something, Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the next item that I do want to do our own work around the Mount Jeff area. And I think we can still do that this year.
Yeah, I'd like to do that too,
Around the foundation.
if it's something we can do ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have, I think I commented on this before. Jassy didn't want to touch that, and it wasn't clear to me why she didn't want to do that. But I'm all in, I wanted to do it a number of years ago. But she actually literally did not want to do that, and boggles my mind. But I'll take an action to clarify with Jassy if there was any specific reason not to do that.
I actually talked to her at one point, and my recollection was that it was just that it would require continual maintenance, and they, for whatever reason, didn't think they'd be able to keep up with it, and it would just get overgrown again.
Oh, that's,
But-
all right. I don't, so let's put this on, and I'm all in favor of that too. So.
You want to put a tentative date on when we
Well,
might?
who's gonna head it up and put a date on it?
Well, I mean, it's not gonna be a single, it's gonna require everybody
Oh,
to.
no, but I think you'll get volunteers, but somebody needs to say, okay, here's what we're gonna do, set up work days, et cetera, et cetera. So somebody needs to be a leader for that effort.
Yeah, I can do that.
All right.
I mean, that's just, getting it organized, but,
Yeah, no, Steph and I would, we'd love to do that and get in there. And if we knew when we were doing it, then like the big tractor would probably be a good thing that could reach down in there in some places with a backhoe and
yeah.
pull stuff out. And so,
I guess my only question would be, if anybody knows a quick answer to this, is what are we going to do with with everything that we cut and pull out of there?
Yeah.
Is it, we going to burn it?
I think it's got to be a combination of burning and chipping. I was gonna talk to DPW about where to set up a brush pile where their chipper crew can come by and take care of that part of it.
Yeah.
You don't chip up you don't want to chip up all the bittersweet.
No.
That's stuff you want to burn.
Yeah.
well, is that like you don't want to burn that?
What?
You do want to burn the bittersweet.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll just put my name on it, Bob, and I'll start working on getting things organized, and I'll be reaching out to everybody to
Okay.
get some
That sounds-
dates and figure out a plan.
All right. You put your name down there. You got that document.
Yeah. Okay.
The removal of additional trees, let's put that off till the fall. Yes,
Yeah, if that was one item, Bob, where I was, if Dick O'Brien's crew, Dick O'Brien's trail crew does much better work than Bobby does.
yep,
And if they were looking for things to do and wanted a quick hit project like that, it would not hurt my feelings if they wanted to take care of that, because it's sort of instant gratification. a half day work and you drop those trees and all of a sudden the view opens up.
All right, I'll take an action to call Dick on trees at Dottie Rock.
And if that doesn't, but if that doesn't happen, then yes, we can do them in the fall.
Okay. All right, you all set with that, Rick?
Yeah.
25 is redundant with
17.
17, so you can eliminate 25, Rick.
Okay.
Establish Malone at kiosk. I think we talked about that, right?
Yep.
Although, did we? What's our kiosk plan?
I don't think that's a this year thing.
Pushing that off.
Okay, so push that off the next year. Facilitate Girl Scout Monarch Way Station project. Susan?
Yeah, update on that. The girls, there are 5 girls. Yeah, he's gonna, you done?
Yeah.
Ooh,
An intruder? You got a
Yeah.
burglar there.
yeah. There are 5 girls working on their badge, and they did put their plugs in mid-May-ish because the mayflies were terrible. Some of them have survived. I'm over there watering from time to time when needed, and so is one of the leaders. So, and it's naturally, we've got daisies, black-eyed Susans coming, echinacea, and bee balm, and other goldenrod and so forth. So it's turning into a nice little meadow sort of on its own. But yes, the girls did their thing, and they are actually going back, taking pictures and so forth. So that's working out nicely.
So is that something we want to just claim as done?
That's a good question. Maybe when they ultimately get their badge, it would be a culmination sort of thing. And then it's just ongoing every season, right? I mean, not with them necessarily, but it's been established as far as I can see.
Yeah, great job. with
So you
that.
mean you want to take it off the list?
Yeah.
Okay, Rick's going to take it off the list, and we'll just assume they'll follow through with their badges. But they've been very
Well, I think-
faithful,
I think,
and
I
appreciate
wouldn't
work.
necessarily, what I would do is claim it as done. We've done, I mean, you know, all the work to facilitate that. So that's, the facilitation has been done, and it's essentially now a work in progress that will continue, right?
Yes, correct. So yeah, let's get it off the list. That
Yeah, so
works for me.
You can put that as a green and that we've done that. The paint benches, we talked about that. Bridge repairs at Canesta, we talked about that. Oh, and then the last one is repair rotted posts on signs at Mount Jeff.
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing that here in the next couple of weeks, Bob.
Okay. All right. It seems like there was. Well, trail missing. That we talked about. Okay, that got everything on the list so far. Anything else? No? How about,
That'll give us something to do for the next couple of months.
what's that?
That'll give us something to do for the next couple of months.
Yep. Do we want to talk about another meeting?
Just before we leave action here. So on Tuesday, when we walk the Mill Pond reroute, I'll bring my chainsaw gear, and if a couple people are available to haul stuff, we can take care of that. Those blowdowns on the Gates Hill Trail you were talking about.
Yeah,
Okay, that's a great
Good
idea.
I'll be there.
Yep. Any other business? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Gonna set a meeting date?
Oh, that's right. I had that calendar up there.
January 28th. I mean, January, July.
July 28th.
We had a number of things on the thing, so want to just schedule a meeting for the 28th?
Sure.
Yes.
All right, the next meeting will be the 28th of July. Now do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that's an unanimous. So I'd much rather meet with you guys all in person, but at our next meeting, you can see Steph's smiling face because we ordered a camera to facilitate these silly meetings here. So it was good seeing you folks, even though you couldn't see us.
Yeah, you were in your pajamas, Bob.
I'll close the meeting and thank you, everyone.